This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
New agreements. Nova Scotia's 10 universities ink deals with the province that outline funding and accountability rules. Privacy breach. Why this woman warns your medical records might not be safe from snooping. And rolling with the tides. Halifax's new women's soccer team gets ready for its first ever home opener.
Our latest system rolls in for the weekend with a few showers on Saturday and then some rain rolling in for Saturday night into Sunday morning. A full timeline and details are coming up.
Nova Scotia's 10 universities have signed new 2-year agreements with the province. The agreements outline funding, accountability requirements, and stipulations the schools must abide by to access some of the money. Nicholas Sagan has the details.
The province's universities have new funding agreements with the provincial government, with some components being celebrated and others causing concern. G. Selesky with Students Nova Scotia points to one big win, a 2-year tuition freeze for Nova Scotian university students.
It will mean that students in Nova Scotia that want to stay and study in their home province will hopefully have a more affordable time doing so.
According to StatsCan, Nova Scotia has the highest undergraduate tuition for domestic students in the country, with an annual average of $9,762 last academic year. The Canadian average was more than $2,000 less. Selesky hopes the freeze will bring the province's tuition more in line with others.
It's no secret, post-secondary students in Nova Scotia have been being priced out of their education for some time.
While this change is seen as positive by most, other parts of the agreements are not having the same reception.
It's a real step backwards for our sector.
This professor says the tuition freeze, coupled with only a 2% funding increase, will leave universities in financial trouble. They also need to meet provincial requirements to get all the money.
Provincial government is meant to be there to support and fund our needs, not to interfere and micromanage what universities do.
The Minister of Advanced Education says the goal of the agreements is to make universities more financially viable.
There's huge debts, and we want to make sure, and I've said it before, this isn't just about the now, it's about the future. We want to make sure that every single university is still here 10, 15, 20 years from now.
When asked why funding couldn't be increased to at least match inflation, Maguire said the province doesn't have endless pockets. Nicholas Sagan, CBC News, Halifax.
A Nova Scotia woman wants the public to know that their personal health information might not be protected from snooping. Patricia Salan discovered last year that her privacy had been breached only after she filed an access to information request. Michael Gorman reports.
Patricia Salan says she decided to find out who was looking at her health files after hearing reports of privacy breaches in the system. The result was records that showed a fellow Dalhousie Medical School resident inappropriately accessed her files multiple times through work. It was the first she'd heard of the breach.
I was shocked to see that and shocked also that nobody had brought it to my attention, that I had found out by filing a request for logs myself.
Salan alerted Dal and the health authority of her findings. Although the breach was confirmed, she says she was told nothing could be done because by then the resident had completed his training and left the province. Neither Dalhousie or Nova Scotia Health would make someone available for interviews. In statements, spokespeople said employees and learners are expected to behave ethically and adhere to rules about privacy and confidentiality. The health authority says all reported breaches are investigated and there are consequences for people who break the rules. Salan doesn't feel that way.
For this to not be proactively caught, for me to have to find it on my own, and for there to be no consequences for somebody who has breached my privacy while he was in training to be a doctor, it tells me that this isn't really a priority for them.
Privacy lawyer David Fraser says it's prudent for people to request their own information if they think they're susceptible to a breach. Fraser says many systems have built-in checks and balances, but even the best ones cannot prevent all snooping. Michael Gorman, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia Health is reporting that 253 new doctors arrived in the province during the year ending on March 31st. When taking into account departures, it's a net gain of 187 doctors working in Nova Scotia. The health authority says that figure is 2 times as many as the previous year. 89 of the 253 new doctors practice family medicine, and 164 are specialists. Of those recruited, about 1/3 were trained abroad, most notably in the UK and the United States. Dalhousie Medical School contributed more than 60 medical residents, almost half coming from the family medicine program. A Nova Scotia woman who killed her daughter is being granted additional escorted passes from prison 16 years after her sentencing for the crime. Penny Boudreau was convicted of second-degree murder in the 2008 death of her 12-year-old daughter, Carissa, with the court hearing that the girl died from strangulation. The conviction carries an automatic life sentence, and the judge set her full parole ineligibility at 20 years. Since 2018, Boudreau has been granted occasional escorted passes by the parole board to attend church services and spend time with a female friend. And Ryan's here with that all-important weekend forecast. It sounds like a bit of a mix.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be soggy in the middle, but I think we will see opportunities to get outside Saturday throughout the day, and then again perhaps later Sunday. But in between, it will be, quite a bit of rain. We are looking at amounts that are likely going to be in that 20 to 40 millimeter range across the North Shore, and then much of the south, especially along the Atlantic coastline, are likely going to be in at least the 30 to 60 millimeter range. And that's where we're looking at these shades of red. And that includes Cape Breton, where we could see some higher pockets as well. So this is a substantial shot of rain. As you can see, along the warm front on Saturday, a couple of isolated showers. But for the most part, Saturday through the day is going to be cloudy. We'll see the southeast winds picking up. And then into the afternoon, we're going to start to see that wet weather, shower chances really increasing towards the mid to late afternoon, and then that rain approaching from west to east through the late afternoon in the west, but then most of us into the evening. Really, really wet and gusty southwest winds through the Saturday night time frame. Then on Sunday, the wet weather certainly over Cape Breton and eastern areas, but perhaps some clearing and maybe a break of sun Sunday afternoon. We'll break down that full timeline in detail and your temperatures coming up with your 7-day forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, sounds good, Ryan. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Well, Nova Scotia's cruise season is upon us. That means some smaller ships will be anchoring in Louisbourg Harbor. But area business owners say tourists are not spending much time in the community. Erin Pawnee has the details.
Businesses in Louisbourg are gearing up for another tourism season. That means welcoming cruise ships that can carry up to 380 people. Local shop owners say they're excited by the potential of having more tourists in the village. But unfortunately, many of them pass on through on their way to the nearby fortress or the Miners Museum in Glace Bay.
When the cruise ships are able to come in, they go to the harbor, they bring them in on little boats, and then what happens is these people are bussed out of the community. So they can't invest back in the community, they can't go to local restaurants, shops, or community hubs, and that's very frustrating.
Robert McKeegan is a woodworker who runs a shop out of his Louisbourg home.
We do lose a lot of the tourists. I know business downtown that, put signboards out all over the sidewalk and couldn't even get somebody to come around the corner, which is very discouraging.
The Port of Sydney says cruise ship passengers typically sign up for excursions from local tour operators. It plans to meet with the Louisbourg community to give businesses a better understanding of what to expect on cruise ship days. In turn, they'll gather information on store openings or planned events that can be passed on to a ship's passengers.
It's trying to find that balance of getting people to experience Louisbourg, but still making sure that the reasons that they're coming to that port and to Cape Breton Island are still being met too.
Aspinall Renault says having more visitors stay and spend money would be a major boost for the village.
Our community has a lot to offer and a lot to give the passengers, and we honestly work very hard when the cruise ships come in, but when they last minute have to cancel due to weather, or they dock and then they leave the community, it really is very hard on people.
Both McKeegan and Aspinall Renault are hoping to get more businesses and community groups working together to find ways to not only get visitors to Louisbourg, but also keep them there. Erin Potty, CBC News, Louisbourg.
There's a big push to get the newest Nova Scotia to PEI ferry ready. An operational review is underway, but the Northumberland won't be going into service for a few more weeks. The CBC's Wayne Thibodeau was given a sneak peek of the new vessel today.
The Northumberland sailed into Wood Islands after another week of sea trials. On board, crew members are doing tests and putting the finishing touches on everything. Sergio Makarenko can't contain his excitement. He's worked on the Confederation and the Surima.
I'm very proud and just really looking forward to this season because we've got a beautiful ship, you know. She looks like a shiny penny and we're excited to show her off. Everything is brand new. We've got a brand new passenger lounge. We've got a brand new passenger galley. You know, it's set up for comfort. It's set up for convenience. It's set up with customer in mind.
Transport Canada bought the Northumberland from Norway last year for $40 million. It arrived in Canada in January and has been in Pictou, getting retrofitted. The service has faced challenges since a fire on the Holiday Island in 2022. The remaining ship, the Confederation, then ran into the wharf last year, and there were no ferries running for 4 weeks. The captain says the Northumberland is good in rough conditions.
This is an excellent ship. It's very good handling, very maneuverable, and I think it's going to serve the island well. This ship's equipped with azipod thrusters, 4 of them, which can turn 360 degrees, so you can literally turn the ship on a dime.
The ship is about the same size as the Confederation. It holds up to 600 passengers. It's also much brighter and more spacious.
It's a great setup for new young marine engineers coming up into the field because this ship deals with the much more modern technology, especially with the way how the future is going of diesel electric. So it's a great place for young engineers to come and start their careers.
The ferry service starts again on Thursday, May 1st, but people will have to wait a bit longer to get on this ship. It'll be on the water starting in mid-June. If you would like to get a closer look at this ship, there'll be public tours this weekend. Wayne Thibodeau, CBC News, Wood Islands.
The provincial government has established a committee to examine new provincial electoral boundaries for the Acadian area of Cheticamp to provide better representation. The committee has been formed to comply with a ruling last November by the Nova Scotia Supreme Court that found the lack of a protected district for Cheticamp to be unjustified, a breach of the Charter rights and freedoms. The Electoral Boundaries Commission must submit an interim report by August 29th and its final report by January 30th. The commission will hold public hearings before both reports. Scientists with the New England Aquarium are concerned with the low number of right whale calves being born this year in North Atlantic waters. This season produced 11 mother-calf pairs, which experts say is good, but well below the goal of 20 or more calves each year. They say the calves that were born seem to be doing well, although one has a tail injury and 3 of the new mothers have prominent scars from vessel strikes. Studies show that injured whales have fewer calves or may take longer to get pregnant. With just under 400 North Atlantic right whales left, births of the endangered species are closely monitored. Well, it is a very exciting time for women's soccer in this country. The Northern Super League officially kicked off last week. Now the excitement finally comes to our coast this weekend. The Halifax Tides face off against Calgary Wild in their first ever home opener tomorrow night. Courtney Sherlock is co-founder and CEO of the team. Sid Kennedy is a midfielder and one of the Blue Nosers on the roster, born and raised in Fall River. CBC met up with both of them at Dalhousie's Wickwire Field, where they were getting ready for Saturday's game.
How is the excitement level at this point?
Hard to even be able to describe, I think, now. We're getting so close. I'm like, okay, let's bring it on. Let's go.
Let's just get out there on the pitch.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say the other clubs who you'll be playing against will be facing when they play the Halifax Tides, Sid?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we touch on is culture. When you build a culture on and off the field, you can see that when we play together. I think we have a work ethic that is unmatched, and I think it'll surprise people just how much we're willing to do for each other. We have a family feel. We've had it since day one, and I think it comes from staff, Courtney, Val, Marilyn, like everyone that's involved. We feel it. So to know that you have that behind you, behind the scenes, and then to see it kind of come to life in the field, I think it'll show for the fans for sure. But I think it's the best province in the world. It's the best province to play in and the best city to play in. I think you feel the support behind us. We feel it already, and we haven't even kicked off yet. Just people talking about it and signs and Instagram messages, everything like that. Like you can really feel the support, and to know that we haven't even started yet just shows like what we're capable of achieving with the city behind us. Yeah, there's pressure. I think you try not to think about it. I mean, it's a privilege to have the pressure. You know that a lot of people are looking up to you, and a lot of people have been waiting for this for a long time, and to know that we have the opportunity to now bring that to Halifax, you do take it more of as a privilege, I would say. I think it'll be amazing for the younger kids. I think we grew up and watched players, but they never got the opportunity to play domestically. I think it took too long for Canada to get this league going and to show that to the kids coming up. So I watched players like Cindy Tai, who came up, but she was never able to pursue that professionally around here. So to be able to have that opportunity and kids can just hop in the car and come to a game, I think that means a lot, and I think it'll mean a lot for them.
It's been just a project of love for everybody who's working on it. We would love to see a sold-out game, which is approximately 7,500 now that with the added seats. So we're hoping to be close to that. And if this rain keeps pushing off and we get some good weather, then fingers crossed we're going to be able to have a sold-out sign on the door. The win for us is actually having this game, and in the audience there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of girls who are looking at this incredible team and saying, I can do that. I can do that now. That can be a dream of mine. So that for me is the biggest win, and that's what will have the most meaning, is just that we've been able to put this together and play a game. I don't know what else will happen, but we're playing a game on Saturday.
Well, Ryan will be back with the full weather forecast, including the forecast for Saturday's game for the Tides. We'll see you in just a few minutes. All right, the pressure's on because the Halifax Tide's first game tomorrow, outdoors, of course, and it could get a little wet.
Could get a little wet. That's when we're going to be watching those showers starting to approach. The greatest chance for showers is going to be increasing as we move throughout the evening. So if you're heading to the game, make sure you are dressed appropriately. You got the rain jacket ready to go.
Caledonians are tough.
Yes, for sure. It's an advantage against the opposition, right? So, yes, and good luck to them. As we look at our webcam video, you can see a few minutes ago when I decided which spot I was going to show, this was sunny. And you can see the fog is starting to move in there at White Point. And so, yeah, we will see those fog patches rolling in for tonight and then dissipating as we move throughout the morning. Beautiful shot there, nonetheless. And yes, boy, temperatures really popped there nicely in through the southwest today. 15 the high at Shelburne, 19 degrees at Keji. So that was indeed our hot spot as expected today. And you can see those temps cooler along the coast. We're still sitting at 18 degrees at Keji Park, 13 in Shelburne, 8 and 7 degrees in through Western Head and Lunenburg. And this is where, again, that fog is starting to roll in along that coastline, and it will continue to roll inland for tonight. Winds, rather, not too gusty out there right now. A gust up to 33 up in Amherst. And we are looking at those showers that have been hanging on across Cape Breton are still hanging on at this hour. Those will continue to clear out as we move through tonight. We are watching this warm front that's going to be stretching in for this evening, or for Saturday rather, bringing out that chance for showers. That is going to be the main weather system at hand. Some milder air pushing in, though, and we will tap into that mild air mass for Sunday, which will be milder than Saturday. So let's break down the forecast. Temperatures 1-2 degrees, and that chance for showers for this evening is the greatest chance across Cape Breton, as you just saw. Can't rule out an isolated risk here for especially towards the northeast. Everywhere else, it looks like that shower chance has wrapped up. Now, no, even around 10, 11 o'clock, still that lingering chance. And then into the overnight, we're starting to see a chance for showers moving back in for the Tri-County area, the Valley, the South Shore, and then into the Halifax metro area by morning. The timing of this front, a couple of hours will make or break, obviously. But and so this could be back further to the west or a little bit further to the east. But the general theme is, along this warm front, we are going to be seeing the potential for a shower moving through the morning hours. And then it looks like that will fade off to the north. And I think for a good chunk of the day, we're looking at cloudy skies, some fog patches along the coast. That southeast wind is going to keep things a bit cool and maybe a bit of patchy drizzle. Chance for showers pushing into Cape Breton for the afternoon. And then you can see the wet weather starting to march its way in from west to east here. There's 5 o'clock, starting to see those shower chances, as I said, increase for the metro area. 10 to 14 to 15 degrees for places like Truro for tomorrow, away from that southeast flow. 8 to 10 degrees and a chance for a bit of morning sun here across Cape Breton. And then that chance for showers moving in for you folks into the afternoon. Let's go back to the hour by hour. So there's 6 o'clock. And again, if you are heading to the game, make sure that you're dressed appropriately, although most of that wettest of weather looks set for late evening for Metro. But you can see how this really fills in through the evening and overnight. Periods of rain, some southwest winds which will gust 40, 50, 60 kilometers per hour. So it will be gusty. Note Sunday morning, Cape Breton, the eastern mainland, still into those that band of steady rain. Not too bad further to the west, but a chance for some showers moving throughout the day. So a heads up on that. And then the potential for even some sunshine to break through mid to late afternoon. If that happens, you can see the model really bumping up those temperatures. The sun is so key this time of year. I do think, though, the potential is there to maybe crack 14, 15 degrees here with this air mass on Sunday. So yeah, not too bad temperature-wise, but keep the umbrella handy even for Sunday. Lingering chances for showers on the tail end of this system for Monday. There's the rainfall map again, 20 to 40 millimeters for the north and looking at 30 to 60 millimeters, especially the Tri-County area and the Atlantic coastline. So it's going to be soggy for sure. And we are looking at that Tuesday forecast looking pretty good as temperatures stay mild through next week. Amy.
We'll take the mild temperatures,
We
right?
will indeed, yes.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, with just days before Canadians head to the polls, we speak to a political scientist about the latest. are heading into the final weekend of the federal election campaign. And for a look at how things are unfolding in the home stretch, I'm joined by Dalhousie political scientist Lori Turnbull. So Pierre Poilievre had a pretty well-attended rally in Trenton on Wednesday night, his one and only stop in the province. Former Conservative Cabinet Minister Peter MacKay came out to support him, but Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston did not. I'm wondering, does that surprise you?
No, not at all. I think from the beginning, back in 2021, when Tim Houston was running to be the premier of the province in that general election, he was leader before that, but during that provincial election, Houston made a point of saying that he had more in common with Justin Trudeau than he did with Erin O'Toole, who was the Conservative leader really at the time. I would say, if anything, Poilievre is probably even farther away from Houston's style of conservatism than Erin O'Toole was. Houston is not, in any way, I think, a comfortable partner of Pierre Poilievre, and he's not the only one. Doug Ford does his best in Ontario to distance himself from Pierre Poilievre too. So this seems to be an issue, and certainly with the release of Premier Houston's video this week, definitely reason to think that these guys are close.
Well, I was going to ask you about that video. It had some people wondering whether Houston was eyeing Poilievre's job, but what do you make of those speculations?
It's possible. I mean, certainly the job isn't vacant yet, but who knows what's going to happen on Monday. I'm in Ottawa, and not too far away is Pierre Poilievre's riding, and there's even concern that perhaps he won't be successful at that level. And so we'll see what happens. But as far as Houston is concerned, I mean, I think what we're seeing actually is a video that can be used for all kinds of things. Like when I read it, when I saw it, when I watched it, I thought this could be a promotional video for Nova Scotia. This could be used by, Tourism Nova Scotia if you took off the part about the 51st state. But then you could think of it in terms of a premier just being really proud of his province and putting that video out there as kind of a shot in the arm for a time where Nova Scotia is like the rest of Canada in a period of uncertainty. And it's just kind of reminding us what all that we've got to be proud of. And then on another level, though, I mean, clearly, when he says, I'm Tim and I'm a Nova Scotian, and he goes on, he's positioning himself. Now, how serious he is about that, whether he's seeing this as something in the near future or in the later future or what, it could be just a trial balloon, a very well-crafted trial balloon, but it's certainly making some noise. People all over the country are talking about it. And certainly people are interpreting it as a bit of a poke at Poilievre, especially since it was basically the same time that Poilievre was doing this rally.
Well, what do you expect to see over these next final days of the race?
I think now the parties are really focusing on what ridings could still be in play. Where could their efforts still make a difference when people are just kind of having those last few days to think about things before they go to the polls. There are undecided voters. There always are. There are always people who go into the ballot box undecided, and they make a choice when they're in there. And so I think that's basically where the game is now. Lots of people have voted in the advanced poll. Lots of people will vote on Monday, and they already know where they're voting, and there's no moving it now. But the parties will try to shake loose every vote they can. And so this will be a lot about the ground game, a lot about making sure people are mobilized, the volunteers are out there. This is the final push.
Well, on election night, which Nova Scotia ridings are you going to be keeping a close eye on?
Definitely Halifax, because that one obviously was Andy Fillmore's riding. And then the last time there was an election, Lisa Roberts came a very close second. And so now she's running again in that riding. And so the NDP's fortunes across the board are not looking so good right now. But I think Ms. Roberts looks quite competitive in that riding. So I'm interested to see whether she turns that into a win. Also looking at the ridings that the Conservatives hold right now, because Mark Carney and the Liberals are polling really high in Atlantic Canada. And, I don't think it's going to be a sweep, but I think it's going to be a good night for the Liberals in the area. And so I'm wondering whether the Conservatives will hold on to the seats they've got. Because, someone like Chris D'Entremont, he's been the MP for a while, but was the MLA before that. He's the type of person who might hold on, even if the wave is kind of going in a different direction. Rick Perkins has been, I think, positioning himself for a cabinet post for a long time, assuming that Poilievre was on his way to victory. That looks a lot less certain now. So just those are pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night, perhaps, as we watch across the country. So it should be interesting. All right, Lori Turnbull, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
coming up, federal party leaders wrap up their campaigns before Canadians head to the polls on Monday. And a mistrial has been declared in the sexual assault case against 5 former World Junior hockey players. Welcome back. The federal party leaders are making the final dash to the campaign's finish. 36 days of stops across the country ends Sunday. The CBC's Evan Dyer looks at how the rivals are positioned.
Thank you very much.
Polls are showing that this election is an unusually two-way affair, with more than 4 in 5 Canadians planning to vote for either Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives or Mark Carney's Liberals. Smaller parties like the Bloc Québécois and the New Democrats have seen some of their voters turn to other parties, primarily the Liberals, out of fear of a Pierre Poilievre victory.
We have not seen the NDP or the Bloc or the Greens or the People's Party make much gain over the course of this election, and so that binary choice that I think this election has become is still very much likely to happen on Monday.
Jagmeet Singh's rhetoric has changed over the course of the campaign. New Democrats usually run for first place, but Singh has more modest goals.
The NDP has gone from, over the last few elections, campaigning as if they were trying to form government, to now basically saying, send more of us to Ottawa so we can hold the other parties accountable.
I think it's most likely going to be Mark Carney at this point. If he wants our support, then let's make it really clear. We're not going to let cuts to our healthcare. We want to see it strengthened. We want to see steps to make life more affordable for Canadians.
The separatist Bloc Québécois never runs to govern Canada, of course, but it too is encouraging its voters to see it as a check on the power of a potential Carney government.
Canada will pick Mark Carney as its prime minister. I can change nothing in that. Even if there were 45 MPs from the Bloc, I cannot change that. So we have to collaborate.
With fewer votes available, the smaller parties are taking aim at each other, especially in Quebec, with both clearly expecting a Liberal victory.
Sadly, the Bloc is basically a useless party. They had the past 3 years of a minority government and literally did this much for people.
The NDP has never had any kind of use. At least the Bloc Québécois is the proud representative of a proud nation. In a few days from now, I might tell myself, I won't miss this guy.
Of course, if there's a majority government elected on Monday, then no smaller party would hold the balance of power. But they're not only campaigning to influence a future government, they're also fighting to protect their official party status and even to ensure their survival. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
With less than 3 days left until the election, Liberal leader Mark Carney visited Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
President Trump, his words and actions, he wants to divide us because dividing us would make his job easier. He's trying to break us so that America can own us. And that will never happen. We will stand with the auto workers, with the forestry workers, the aluminum workers, and above all, the steel workers.
He's putting a spotlight on one of the hardest hit industries. Facing Donald Trump's tariffs on global steel and aluminum imports, Sault Ste. Marie could soon become ground zero for Canada's economic crisis. Carney also met with other community members in the region before ending his day with a rally in London, Ontario. The last Friday of the election campaign saw Pierre Poilievre in Saskatoon. The prairies are a region he's counting on, and after recapping the agenda he set out over the last 4.5 weeks, he made his pitch to get the Conservative vote out.
I want a country with a big opportunity, big as the prairie sky. That is my purpose in politics, to bring home Canada's promise, but it takes change to do it. And on Monday, we all need to vote for change. Now let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
Poilievre will be in BC, Calgary, and Sudbury tomorrow. He finishes the campaign with 4 stops in southern Ontario Sunday. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh campaigned in Toronto, doubling down on his party's pledge to defend health care and prioritize affordability for Canadians.
In this budget, in the first budget, we want to see commitments to help us get to a point where every Canadian has access to a family doctor. And we want to see an expansion of our pharmacare to include all essential medications in year 1.
Singh says his party will fight to cap grocery prices and enact national rent control. He also pledged to close offshore tax loopholes, adding that they'll use the next budget to fight back against Donald Trump's trade war. A scan of a map of Canada's federal ridings, and you'll see one of the largest carves out a huge section of northern Quebec. 5 parties have held it. The CBC's Vanessa Lee looks at the race in this election.
Considered the gateway to northern Quebec, in a region known for mining and forestry, many voters are undecided on candidates, but decisive on the issues.
It's more expensive. We are in... It's not a big town.
The price of the food, the Trump.
The city of Val-d'Or is just one part of the vast Abitibi-Baie-James-Nunavik EU riding, which is the largest in Quebec. The distance to the northern tip is 1,500 kilometers. The riding is diverse. While it's predominantly Francophone, 1 in 4 people speaks an Indigenous language. The goal of the Native Friendship Centre is to support that growing population.
We have a shortage in housing. Definitely that's an issue,
And homelessness is an issue. All parties, we didn't hear about those aspects as much as we should have.
Politically, the riding has a history of shifting loyalties. Sylvie Bérubé won the seat vacated by the NDP's Romeo Saganash, who poached it from the bloc in 2011 during the Orange Wave. She is looking to be re-elected for a third term. If we don't defend the interests of Quebec, who will? Federal money always ends up elsewhere, she says. Polls suggest Bérubé will be neck and neck with Mandy Golmasti, the first female Grand Chief of the Cree Nation government in Quebec. She resigned from her position to run for the Liberals, who are on track to steal seats from the bloc with the surge of Canadian pride.
The issue is economy. So does this riding want to have a voice that represents them with the capacity to bring change? Or is it going to be, a vote for another party that may or may not even form the opposition?
What's expected to be a tight race in a province that could swing the election. Vanessa Lee, CBC News, Val d'Or, Quebec.
CBC News has you covered for election night on Monday, April 28th. Chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton will be hosting with minute-by-minute updates as the polls close across the country, starting at 7:30 Atlantic, wherever you watch CBC News. A new jury is being selected in the sexual assault case against 5 former pro hockey players. It's after the judge declared a mistrial. The CBC's Katie Nicholson has more from outside the courtroom in London, Ontario.
A false start to the high-profile trial of 5 former World Junior hockey stars. Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Alex Formanton, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod all pleaded not guilty to sexual assault charges stemming from an alleged incident in June of 2018. Just days after it began, Supreme Court Justice Maria Carrozza declared a mistrial and dismissed the jury. The trial had been on pause since Wednesday when a matter arose midway through the day. The reason for the ruling is protected by an automatic publication ban. Now a brand new jury has been selected, so a new trial can begin as early as Monday.
The mistrial is there to protect the interests of justice and the interests of the accused as it relates to trial fairness.
Defense lawyer Nick Cake says the public shouldn't read too much into this.
It's not a conspiracy, it's not a cover-up, it's how the justice system works, and it is there to ensure that all parties in the justice system can get their day in court, but can get their day in court fairly.
It's not unusual, but I think sort of unprecedented in the sense that you have such a big case and it happens so soon in the case. I think that's probably something that's going to cause a lot of hype.
And defense lawyer Sam Puchala says it's probably best it happened now.
It's good that it happened as early as it did, because better to have a mistrial declared on day 1 than day 40 to give time to proceed to the next steps.
8 weeks were set aside for this case. It's hoped this new trial will stick closely to that same timeline. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Before Pope Francis's burial early Saturday, some of Italy's most vulnerable will pay their respects and honor his lifelong dedication to helping others. Briar Stewart is in Rome, hearing from those who found shelter thanks to his compassion.
Just steps from the crowds in the iconic pillars of St. Peter's Square, a much smaller group has gathered outside of Palazzo Migliori, a shelter that welcomes some of Rome's needy every night. It was set up in the shadows of the Vatican by Pope Francis in 2019.
Many people, they wanted just this place to be a hotel because it's clear why. But he said, yes, it would be a hotel, but for the poor, not for the rich.
A few dozen people stay here every night, all of them with nowhere else to go. In Rome, more than 22,000 people are facing homelessness, often sleeping on the street. Giovanni Catalinellu slept under a bridge before moving here 2 weeks ago. He says when he found out the Pope died, he couldn't stop staring out the window, looking across at St. Peter's Square. It didn't matter about someone's race, he said. All of us he treated with respect. On the walls of the shelter are photos of Pope Francis when he visited in 2019. He inaugurated the building and stopped by during dinner. On this night, volunteers and staff work to prepare a communal meal, served to residents who say this place has become like a home. Throughout his 12 years as Pope, Francis advocated for the most vulnerable, and every year he hosted a lunch at the Vatican for hundreds living in poverty. That's where Fabrizio Salvati met him.
I told him, thank you so much for all you do for poor.
And it will be some of Rome's most vulnerable who will get a final chance to pay their respects. They will be lining the steps at the Basilica, where the Pope will be interred on Saturday. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Rome.
As the Hudson's Bay Company looks to auction off thousands of historical artifacts, the fate of some of those relics has sparked concerns. As the CBC's Josh Crabb reports, some don't want the items to fall into the wrong hands.
Well, I'm going to bring you inside the Hudson's Bay Company Archives vault.
The Archives of Manitoba is home to thousands of historic Hudson Bay Company artifacts. There are maps, company ledgers, and the very first minute book from 1671, the earliest item in the archive.
We've got such a treasure trove here of information that they donated such a long time ago, really.
HBC archive keeper Kathleen Epp says these artifacts detail the history of the now faltering 355-year-old fur trading company turned retailer. The artifacts here also document the foundational history of Manitoba and Canada. But now there are questions and concerns about what will happen to 1,700 pieces of art and 2,700 artifacts that remain in HBC's possession.
When I think about, the artifacts or the sacred items that, are in storage at HBC, it needs to be returned to First Nations people.
The company got approval from an Ontario judge to start preparing to auction off the items as HBC sells off its final 6 stores. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson is calling for any sale or transfer of items with links to First Nations to be stopped, and Wilson wants a list of the items made public. The Manitoba Museum says there are more than 27,000 artifacts in its HBC collection, like the ones you see here. They were donated in 1994. These artifacts belong to the museum, and that won't change. One of the artifacts that could go up for auction is the company's original charter from 1670. It is at HBC headquarters in Toronto. There's a replica at the Manitoba Museum in Winnipeg. The museum says the original charter is an important piece of Canadian history, and it hopes the real one will remain accessible to the public in some way. The Archives of Manitoba would welcome having it.
And we also know it's a complex situation, so we have a spot if it lands here.
HBC can start preparing to auction off the remaining artifacts, but the company must return to court to detail what items it wants to sell beyond the charter. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Canada's main stock index ended the week with a slight dip, while U.S. markets saw a boost as major American corporate heavyweights started reporting earnings. Let's take a look at the numbers as we head to break. Well, no matter how you slice it, it's still the weekend.
Yep.
Rain, shine, whatever, it's the weekend.
That's a glass half full, and
Yeah,
I like
right
that.
there,
We're
right
all about glass half full here.
We try.
We do try, especially this time of year where it can be, a little touch and go. Well, let's have a look at our viewer picture of the day. And speaking of bright, have a look at this. This was taken at the Wolf Park. And it's a great park if you've never been there.
Lovely.
Kathleen Smith with a beautiful sunrise shot there. And thank you to Kathleen for sharing this. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. So at the Wolf and all across the province, it's going to be wet this weekend. This model a little more bullish towards northern areas than some of the others, but I do think at least 20 millimeters in the north to as much as 40, perhaps some pockets of 50, but the best chances of getting into that 40, 50, 60 millimeter range are going to be the Tri-County area and along that Atlantic coastline and into Cape Breton. That is where we're looking at those heavier amounts. It is all going to be heavy, though, for Saturday night. Saturday, it's those showers that are going to be moving through. Primarily, the best chance is actually going to be in the morning along that warm front, and then a bit of a break, and then the afternoon we'll start to see the showers and rain move back in from west to east. There's Sunday, maybe a break of sun into the afternoon. Let's quickly show you the timeline. Again, that shower chance in the morning along that front, then a bit of a break, then the showers and periods of rain tracking in throughout the afternoon, evening. Pretty wet into Sunday morning, then hopefully some clearing into the afternoon, especially in the west.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
All right, well, NASA is celebrating the 35th anniversary for Hubble.
The Space Telescope launched into orbit aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery in 1990.
To celebrate Hubble's 35th birthday, we're releasing 4 new images. There are different parts of the universe. One of them is the Rosette Nebula, where stars are still forming. We also are releasing an image of a planetary nebula. Now, this colorful nebula really has nothing to do with planets, but it is really the remnants of a dead star system. This is a spiral galaxy. It doesn't look quite like we think our Milky Way does because the spiral arms are kind of smudged together. We call it a flocculent spiral. And then much closer to home in our own solar system, we've taken new pictures of Mars. We see the icy poles on the top, we see clouds, and we can also see mountain ranges and deep canyons and plain structures. This eye on the sky has given people around the world a new view of the universe, how vast it is, how beautiful it is, and how active it is.
Very cool. Well, that is it for us tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.